Hi, Dr. Schneiderman. I don't know what I'm looking at there. Um, so, as you know, as I've told you, my grandfather passed away this week. So, I have been super busy helping my grandma plan the service, mourning my grandfather. That's enough about that because I'm going to cry. Um, so I know you told us we could do 5 minutes each, and that's 7 questions. That's 35 minutes. I don't think I'm going to go that long. I'm going to try and keep my answers short and sweet. And yeah, so here it goes. I hope you're having a better week than I am. Honestly, it hasn't been that horrible of a week. I've been, yes, I lost my grandfather, but I've gotten to visit with my sister who lives in Canada, and my parents came out from Arkansas, so it's been, you know, I think if there's a good thing to losing a loved one, is that all your remaining loved ones gather in one spot. So while yes, I've been mourning, I've also been spending time with my family that I don't get to see very often. So um, it hasn't all been bad. Anyhow, so I will answer the questions to the final. And once again, I thank you for an amazing class. I've loved your class. It's been awesome. And I'm sorry about my dog squeaking toys in the background. Um, so here it goes. So the first question: explain ways in which an English learner might be confused for a child with disabilities and what can be done to prevent this. Okay, I did write it out, but I promise I won't read it. So, what can be done? Well, I'm sorry, what was the question? Ways in which an language learner might be confused for a child with disabilities. So, children who are English language learners, they have a tendency to do poorly on tests that are given in English. Um, also, they can have good casual conversation skills, um, but just because they have good casual conversation skills, doesn't mean that they are able to. They don't have they might not have the academic language. Meaning, if they might be able to carry on a conversation with their little friends on the playground, but if you ask them what is 1 plus 1, they might not understand what plus is because it's not something that they hear regularly. And so they might do poorly in math. Or they might not understand, what a circle is. Or they might not understand what a noun is because those aren't words that they use in casual conversation, so they're unfamiliar to them. Um, Things that can be done to prevent these kinds of things is when you're teaching a child who is an English language learner, first off, you don't want to test them in English. You want to test them in their home language if it's at all possible. Because, like Dr. Haney says, if you're testing an English learner in English, all you're testing them on is how much English they know. You're not testing them on the subject you think you're testing them on. Um, and for the other thing that I mentioned, which was the whole that they understand casual conversation, but they don't understand academic language. What you can do to help with that, to help prevent problems with that from happening, is you can yeah you can use you want to explain the vocabulary. Um, you want to stress the vocabulary words. Maybe if you have access to an interpreter or even a dictionary, you can present both words in both in the word that you want to use. You can use the English word, and then provide them with the word in their own language, and then give them visual examples of what you're trying to teach. That way, not only do they have, because a lot of times these kids, when we get them, if it's a new vocabulary word, they haven't even learned the word in their home language yet. So just giving them the word in the home language doesn't help either. So what you want to do is you want to give them the word in English, give them the word in their home language, and then teach them what that means. Use visual representations to teach them what it means. For example, if I say, 5 plus 5 equals 10, and I tell them in another language, 5 plus 5 equals 10, when you write on the board, you might want to, use, the one-to-one correspondence. You want to have 5 apples, and you add 5 more, and then count them up, and have 10 apples together. That way, they can visually see what 5 plus 5 means. And having the symbols, it's just an example, but having the symbols for math doesn't help. Um, so yeah, I hope I fully answered that question. Let me move on to the next one. Okay. So, what instructional strategies are important for teachers to use in promoting more effective language development with English learners? Explain and give examples. So, it's important for teachers to speak clearly. It's important for teachers to emphasize important vocabulary words. You can, again, like I said before, you can pair those words with their equivalent in the child's home language. And also, you want to pair it with something visual. So, let's say I'm teaching a lesson on fruit or fruits and vegetables, and I'm teaching my lesson on fruits and vegetables, and I want to introduce the vocabulary word apple. So what I might do is I might say the word apple, hold up an apple, point to it and say apple, and then let's say my English language learners, their home language is Spanish, so I would say manzana, apple. Then I might have them repeat it, apple, manzana. Have all the kids say it's manzana, it's apple, and so they can see the visual representation. I'm stressing the word apple. I'm stressing the word manzana. So they understand it in English, they understand it in Spanish, and they have a visual representation of it. Um, but those are just a few ways that you can, teach help English language learners. Few instructional methods that to effectively help English language words with language development in both languages. Okay, number 3. Um, when early childhood educators work to promote a child's language and communication skills, they are also promoting a child's later reading abilities. Explain the statement. Um, Hold on a second. Let me make sure I understand what I just read. Okay, so language and literacy are intertwined. Um, okay. So language and literacy are intertwined, and sorry, my lighting's kind of bad. Maybe this will help. Hold on. That help with no, not really. Okay, so language and literacy are intertwined. Um, so by helping your help, blah. Okay, so you want to expose a child to more language and help them to develop a richer language, richer vocabularies. Um, if you've never heard a word before, um, you're going to have a harder time reading it if you have nothing to, um, if you have no experience with that word. Um, you're going to have a harder time trying to be able to decode it. Um, for example, if I'm trying to read the word blue, I've heard the word blue, I know what blue means. I know the phonological sounds that the letters and the words make, I'm going to have an easier time sounding out the letter blue than say I'm reading click clack moo and I come across the word, oh, where is it? I had an example that I was thinking of, and I come across the word typewriter. If I've never heard the word typewriter, if if I've never heard the word typewriter and I have no experience with what a typewriter is, which, I mean, because everything's on computers now, a lot of the kids nowadays don't know what a typewriter is. They might, and it's spelled with a Y, it's kind of funky. They might not have, they might have a harder time decoding the word typewriter and retaining it if they have no meaning behind it. Um, they've never in their life heard the word, so they're going to have a harder time understanding. Even once they're able to decode it, they might have a harder time understanding what the word means. Okay. Number 4. When early childhood educators work to develop a child's experiential and background knowledge about the world, they're also promoting a child's reading abilities. Explain the statement. Um, this kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about before. Um, when you give a child the experience, not just the words that they're reading, but you have the experiences to back them up. If a child knows what a typewriter is, going back to my previous example, if they're able to have that richer, they understand the meaning of it before they try to come across a word. Um, it helps them to not just decode the word, but understand what they're talking about. The example that I wrote down when I was going through questions is like the word swing. If I am reading a book and it's got the word swing and I point to the word swing, my students know what a swing is. They know that the swing is the chair that they sit in, and I push it and they get, that positive proprioceptive vestibular sensory stuff. However, if I were to talk about the word Oompa, which I looked it up, it's actually a Swedish toy factory. They have no experience. They might be able to sound it out and get it, but they're not going to understand what it is, and so it holds no meaning for them. So by giving a child more experiences and exposing them to more and giving them understandings of what those words mean, you're enriching their vocabularies and in the long run making it easier for them to read. What number was I on? Oh, number 5. So number 5, it is important that early childhood educators work to develop a child's understanding that symbolic information, pictures or print, carry meaning, both to produce and to receive it. So restating that in my own words. So, okay, so it's important for kids to learn that letters are not arbitrary. Letters have a meaning. They represent a sound, and when put together, those sounds form words, and those words again are not arbitrary. When put together, those letters together represent something, and you can even have signs. Signs may not have words on them, but they represent something, like a community sign. A sign with a little blue sign with a little man on it means that that's the boys' restroom. Those are things that kids, even special needs kids, even special needs preschoolers, can understand and need to understand. Um, how does this relate to promoting later reading skills?